Welcome to Indiana SportsBeat Radio.
So for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, it's time!
3 on the way. Oh! It went in! It went in! And Indiana wins the ball game! Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni! Float game for the win! Taylor's gone. Goodbye. Touchdown, Indy. Woo! IU. America. They got a football team now.
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
You know that I'm the cream of the crop.
Oh, now, here's Jim Coyle.
Good day here from Indiana SportsBeat Radio with Jim Coyle. Well, Jim is going to be along just a second as he is still in Eugene, flying back later today. So he will be doing the show from there on this fine Monday. What a weekend it was for Indiana football. The Hoosiers went on the road in one of the toughest environments in all of college football and walked out of a big-time win, 30-20, over the Oregon Ducks. This just wasn't another win in that regard. It was pretty much a statement win for all those outside of the Indiana sphere that belittled, berated, talked down to the Indiana football team and program about scheduling and haven't beaten anybody. And we had talked about this all week about Indiana needing that one win that would break the glass ceiling. And they did that on Saturday afternoon out in Eugene, Oregon. With that win, the Hoosiers rise to number 3 in the top 25 AP poll, as well as the top 10 in the coaches poll. I know that Indiana did receive one first-place vote in the AP poll. Mighty fine how things have come when you've got the Indiana Hoosiers getting a first-place vote in the AP poll yesterday. Also in college football, yesterday, the crazy season began after Penn State's lackluster performance against Northwestern, where they were once again a 20-point favorite against the Wildcats, and they were a previous 20-point favorite against the UCLA Bruins. Penn State pulled the trigger and fired James Franklin after 12 years as the head football coach there at Penn State. I was a little shocked for some reasons in that, but it was probably in the right mindset to do with the fans chanting after the loss to Northwestern, fire Jim Franklin. And that's never a good thing, especially when there's 110,000 doing it there in Nittany Lion Stadium. But Terry Smith, a longtime assistant of James Franklin, will be taking over for now. Franklin's buyout is upwards of $50 million. And there is some rumor that Adidas was the one that ultimately forced the issue and agreed to take on some of that buyout. Take it for what it's worth. Pure rumor on that aspect of things. And it was something to see, but he did a lot of good at Penn State. Good person. He brought them back out of the ashes for what had transpired under Joe Paterno, and made a quick return to Penn State being of national prominence. His biggest lack there as the head coach, not being able to win against the top 10 team. And when you have Kurt Signetti doing it twice in about a 3-week span, that doesn't bode well. And that was kind of a shock as well. Let me see here. Any questions coming up today? Yeah, they did implement it. I think that was one thing that was focused as a strong emphasis during the bye week. And he did a great job of making some of those back shoulder throws on critical situations. A third down situation was one. And then, of course, the go-ahead touchdown was another. And he did quite well. Of course, the other news from college football, and a team that the Indiana Hoosiers will play this week, Michigan State fired Jonathan Smith not even before 2 seasons were over. So it's kind of crazy to think about that as well. But things there in East Lansing, for whatever reason, were not working for that situation. In some respects, it was a kind of an unexpected move. So, and again, I'm trying to get confirmation on that. I got a lot of that on my text messaging thing last night, and so I'm going to double check that. As things in this world of college football swirl, I'd be shocked if they did that as well. But again, there are rumblings in East Lansing for his job, and I would think it would be a huge stupid move on their part, because he's a darn good football coach, and I think he'll get things rolling there at State and what he does and things of that nature. So I'm still waiting for confirmation on that one, because that one was also rampant yesterday as well. So I hope I can get a true confirmation of that one as well, because that would change some things for Indiana this week, because all of a sudden you're changing coaches if that's the case. But we'll wait for that confirmation. Today we've got, of course, the one and only Don Fischer, who had a great call again on Saturday. A beautiful, another historic win that that Don Fischer got to call Saturday. And then Greg Rakestraw from the Colts, who had another big win. How about that? The Colts, again, had a huge win over the Arizona Cardinals on Sunday. And it was at times bleak. Wouldn't say that it was the best game for the Colts defense, as they gave up some really critical downs and situations. And that is one of the big things that the Colts were able to do, facing adversity, something similar to what Indiana faced on the road in critical moments. And we're able to come out with a huge win. And so you can say the two hottest teams right now in the state of Indiana are the Indianapolis Colts and your Indiana Hoosiers. So that in itself is quite remarkable. And right now, Shane Steichen and his Colts are playing really well, and great complementary football like Indiana has done as well. And that's how you win football games, is when all three phases are clicking and you're working as a unit and getting the big plays when you need the big plays. Let's see here. Yeah, Colts do have some toughies coming up soon. So that was, one thing that I think they're going to have to they're going to face some tough games ahead, as anybody in the NFL could expect. And it's going to be a really good season there in Indianapolis, I think, now that they've got the quarterback situation handled and they've got everything working in unison. So it's looking very bright for the Indianapolis Colts. Of course, with Greg Rakestraw coming on as well today, he can fill us in on all the particulars from Sunday, as well as Dustin Dopirak from the Indianapolis Star. Little Pacers talk as well, as they're gearing up to get their season started. And it's kind of hard to believe that we're rolling into another NBA season as well as college basketball season here shortly, as Indiana and the Pacers are getting ready to roll here in the next week or so. And before you know it, we'll have two sports going together, which is a sports fanatic's dream because of that. So a lot of good things happening around Indiana, especially with your Indiana Hoosiers. We're going to step aside here, and hopefully when we come back, we'll see the one and only Mr. Jim Coyle, and hopefully Don Fischer right after this here on Indiana SportsBeat Radio.
Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue, and you get it for just 0.9% financing. Or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer and your best place for new and used vehicles. If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemooreSells@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today.
Huddle up, football fans. Tailgate season is here, and nobody gets you ready for game day like Academy Sports and Outdoors. Swing by your local Academy store or shop online at academy.com to find everything you need, from grills to jerseys and more. Be a watch party legend with gear from top brands like Nike and Under Armour, all at unbeatable prices every day. With 8 Academy stores across Indiana, including our Bloomington location, fun can't lose, and neither can you. Gear up today at Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Zach Browning here to tell you about an offer you simply can't pass up. If you're looking for the best coverage of Indiana football and basketball, which includes recruiting, weekly chats, podcasts, as well as access to the best national team out there, then look no further than thehoosier.com. The best part, it's just $1 for the first week. Oh, and did I mention that you get a full year of access to The Athletic when you sign up? You can't beat the coverage, and you can't beat the deal. So head over to thehoosier.com today and sign up for just $1. It'll be the best decision you ever made.
Welcome back to Indiana SportsBeat Radio with Jim Coyle. I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith, and now joining us, Don Fischer from the beautiful Bloomington, Indiana. Don, what a ball game. I don't even know how any other way to describe that ball game Saturday in Eugene other than it was just, I mean, at some point you wanted to know if you were dreaming or not because of the way that Indiana was playing from start to finish, and really only had 2 really trip ups. The one touchdown pass that kind of busted coverage, and then, of course, the pick 6 that Mendoza threw. But besides that, they played A-plus football in my mind.
Well, they did. There's no question about that, Shannon. This is a football team right now that they're riding high, of course, because they won this ball game. They're now ranked 3rd in the country in both polls. But this is week in and week out what you see from Curt Cignetti. This guy believes that he has the right system, the right philosophy. I don't think anybody can argue with that right now because of what he's done in this past year and a half of football at Indiana University. It is remarkable how he got it to turn so quickly. But when you look at the man and how he goes about his business and you're around him as much as I have been, you know that this guy is special and he knows what he's doing. He knows exactly what he wants from his players, and they know exactly what they have to provide because it's a critical thing in regard to coaching. You've got to have your guys believing in you. And I can tell you to a man, there isn't anybody that doubts that Curt Cignetti is the best coach in the country right now, at least from an Indiana University player's standpoint.
Yeah, I guess the one other question too on this win on Saturday, kind of where does this rank in terms of the historic Indiana athletic, programs that are there? I mean, there's been a lot of historic wins, not just in football, basketball. You can go right down the list, but kind of in your tenure as the voice of Indiana Hoosier athletics, kind of where do you see this stacking up?
Well, it's the most remarkable thing I've ever seen. It's pretty easy to distinguish it that way. And I've seen a lot. I mean, when I got here in 1973, this program from a football standpoint was really down. And from a basketball standpoint, it was really up because Bob Knight was the coach in his third year, which was my first year at IU. They won tied for the Big Ten championship that year, and got beat in a playoff against Michigan over in Champaign, Illinois. People don't remember all that, but they had to play it off. And when they did, Indiana got beat. And the next thing you knew, Indiana was in the CCA tournament.
Yeah.
Which Bob Knight did not want to play in because he thought it was going to ruin the NIT. And he verbalized that pretty remarkably. And but then what he had to, because he had to represent the conference in the CCA tournament. And then they went and won it. And they had a 3-game situation there in which he won that tournament. But he was not pleased about it and got kicked out of the championship game in the first half. People don't remember those kinds of things, but I do. I was a part of it. I got a chance to see it. It was my first opportunity to work with Coach Knight. So at any rate, so I've seen a lot of really incredible things at Indiana while I've been here. But this thing that we've seen with Indiana football is the most remarkable simply because it was so unexpected. When Curt Cignetti was hired, nobody knew who this guy was. I mean, people did know who he was, but we didn't know anything about him. And all I can say, kudos to Scott Dolson, Pam Whitten. They saw what they saw in this man when they hired him, and we've all got a chance to enjoy the opportunity to be a part of it. And it's just something special that we've never anticipated was going to happen at Indiana because of the negatives of Indiana's losing record throughout the years.
No question. And I can, I have said all along that Scott Dolson did a phenomenal job by looking past, the big hire and the splash hire by going out and find somebody that he felt fit Indiana for this particular time period and evaluated it from A to Z with Coach Cignetti. That's a pretty good start right there when the AD is fully participating in that process. So that's a big congrats to Scott Dolson. Saturday, outside of some other things that we just talked about, where do you think that game turned in Indiana's favor? Did you feel like it was a game that they fully had under control? And even though the big pick six that tied the ball game back up, that brought the crowd into it, was silenced pretty quickly, and pretty much all day long when Indiana needed that drive, they got it. But
and that's the thing that I think the confidence that Cignetti instills in his players. Never too high, never too low. one play at a time. You know, his statements are all ingrained now in our brains because we've heard them so many times now, and they're pretty simple, and yet they're so effective in how the thinking process is instilled in these players. And so I don't know that the game turned at any particular point. I think a lot of people thought it turned when Fernando threw the interception and Vinny took it in the end zone so quickly. But this team doesn't affect them. They don't sit there and lament, all of a sudden we've lost momentum or something like those kinds of. That's not the way they think. Yeah. It's basically what Coach Cignetti says: one play at a time, never too high, never too low. You just go on to the next play, and they buy into it. And it's a part of the philosophy, I think, that is such a critical thing for any football or basketball or sports team, period. You can't do anything about what just happened. All you can do is go on to the next play. And so I'm not sure I don't know that this game really turned at any particular point, because I watched the same thing when Indiana beat Iowa. This team never gave up. They never got down on themselves. They just went out there and played. And it was the next play and execute the next play, and then you go on to the next one. So to be honest with you, I was I concerned going into the game with Oregon? Yeah.
Sure.
Well, we had not beaten a team like that. The team of that ilk in since I've been here in 53 years, because we've seen Indiana go into ball games with a decent record through the years and then get beat by the Ohio States and the Michigans. Now, it did happen in 1987 that Indiana beat Ohio State and Michigan the same year, and so you got to go back to history and look at what Bill Mallory accomplished at IU. He did some remarkable things too. It's just a different era. And at this point, we're seeing something we've never seen before, because to turn it in 1 year's time into something that special, to go to the college football playoff in the first year of a coach's history at Indiana, unheard of at IU. So we're seeing history rewritten here at Indiana University, and it's really fun to be a part of.
Absolutely. And Don, I'm a rookie at this, so you let me know when you need to kick it out and go, okay, partner? Because
I'm about a minute away,
okay.
So we got about 60 seconds.
Okay, all right. Well, I was close. Last question then for you. We talked about this statement win by Indiana needing to get one, kind of breaking that glass ceiling wide open. Now, all those outside of the Indiana sphere are now looking to take this IU team seriously.
Right.
Is that something that, from your perspective, is kind of like really neat to see, because you've known for the last couple of years that Indy had something special, and all your partners in the vast media that you have connections to or talked to are now kind of eating a little bit of crow when it comes to Indiana and talking about their schedule and this and that, and they haven't beat A, B, C, D.
Right. Well, I think it's always fun to watch the pundits have to backtrack on things that they've said in the past. It's really fun to be a part of that too, because look, Indiana's been pretty much a punching bag for just about everybody in the country from a college football perspective for many years, especially in the post Bill Mallory era years. Indiana's gotten no respect. And when they've had a chance to pull off a big upset of some kind, it's never happened. So all of a sudden we're seeing something we haven't seen for a long, long time. And it's, like I said before, it's so much fun to be a part of. And every Indiana fan out there can enjoy this, because it's never happened before like this.
Yes, that is true. And Don, I appreciate you coming on today here on the Monday edition of Indiana SportsBeat Radio. I appreciate it. And you keep Buck, sir, in line now. Don't let him get too high or too low.
Well, first of all, you got to know about that, Shannon, is there is no keeping Buck Sewer in line. Just so you know. Well, thanks for having me.
All right, sir. I appreciate your time, and best of luck the rest of the way. Keep it going down there, and I hope to catch up with you sometime later.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
All righty. Don Fischer, the voice of your Indiana Hoosiers, and again, just a remarkable day there in Eugene. And, there's a man there. I have immense amount of respect. So that was pretty cool for me. Only being that's the only second time I've had a chance to talk to Fish in a interview type of scenario, but truly amazing what his career there at Indiana has been, 50 some odd plus years. But, having him talk about this game in its historic perspective and that is pretty remarkable when you think about all that. There is one thing I do need to clean up, and I want to apologize for maybe jumping the gun a little bit, because I would never want to disparage or, do something that would that is not a true statement in that respect. And I was trying to get some confirmation of that. Michigan State has not parted ways with Jonathan Smith, so I do apologize for that misstep on my part, being a former college football coach. So I would never want to do anything that brought, a negative over the picture there for Coach Smith, because I do have a tremendous amount of respect for him and what he's done in college football. So I apologize for that aspect of things, and we just move on. But there were significant changes yesterday in college football. We talked about Penn State, UAB, and many others when it comes to that. We're going to step aside here real quick, take another break. When we come back, we're going to talk to Mr. Greg Rakestraw about the Indianapolis Colts, the other hot team in the state of Indiana. Right after this, here on Indiana SportsBeat Radio.
Know a team or group needing a fundraiser? Boost Fundraising raises more money faster and offers the most unique and user-friendly online fundraiser in the nation. Your team receives personalized fundraising pages for each team member. Free team-branded promo gifts shipped to each donor. Boost Fundraising does it all. Sports teams, marching bands, charity causes, and community groups. Go to boostfundraising.com and be sure to enter the promo code COYLE, that's COYLE, to receive a discounted fundraiser. Whether it's a night out with the family, after work with colleagues, or catching the game with friends, Bubba's 33 is the place for you. Bubba's 33 offers a mouthwatering menu of selections that are all made from scratch every day. The portions are big, but the prices are small. And with over 50 big screen TVs, you'll never miss the big game. Bubba's 33, pizza, burgers, beer.
Zach Browning here to tell you about an offer you simply can't pass up. If you're looking for the best coverage of Indiana football and basketball, which includes recruiting, weekly chats, podcasts, as well as access to the best national team out there, then look no further than thehoosier.com. The best part, it's just $1 for the first week. Oh, and did I mention that you get a full year of access to The Athletic when you sign up? You can't beat the coverage, and you can't beat the deal. So head over to thehoosier.com today and sign up for just $1. It'll be the best decision you ever made.
Huddle up, football fans. Tailgate season is here, and nobody gets you ready for game day like Academy Sports and Outdoors. Swing by your local Academy store or shop online at academy.com to find everything you need, from grills to jerseys and more. Be a watch party legend with gear from top brands like Nike and Under Armour, all at unbeatable prices every day. With 8 Academy stores across Indiana, including our Bloomington location, fun can't lose, and neither can you. Gear up today at Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Welcome back to Indiana SportsBeat Radio with Jim Coyle here on Monday. I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith, and we appreciate you tuning in today for a monumental win by the Indiana Hoosiers. But speaking of football, we're going to bring in Mr. Greg Rakestraw, because he has also a lot of knowledge that we must grab. And Greg, I appreciate you jumping on today. Jim is still in Eugene, and I think he may be having some issues in the technological area. So you get me today, my friend.
Well, that's like the third big win in a row for the citizens of Indiana. First, it was the Hoosiers on Saturday, the Colts on Sunday, and then Griff on Monday. I like this.
A hat trick, as you would say in hockey. And we are rolling into all the different seasons already on a collision course to be rolling at the same time. Major League Baseball divisional series are up and at 'em. So talk about this Indianapolis Colts team, because yesterday when I was watching it, I saw the defense give up 3rd and long, more than I could shake a stick at. And that is something we just haven't seen this Colts team do against Mr. Jacoby Brissett, a former Indianapolis Colts.
Griff, if from lean on your coaching experience here, if you had a 46-man roster that you could dress, which is what you can do for a National Football League game, how many cornerbacks would you prefer to have of that 46, Shannon?
Well, I would like to have probably at least 3, if not 4, so you have 2 deep heading into Sunday. But the Colts, as we know, seems to be the position that, of course, they are a little shallow in.
Well, the answer to that question would be normally 6 is what you would carry.
Really?
Because generally, everybody starts 3 wide at this point, and then usually you've got at least 1 or 2 backups, then maybe another guy on special teams. Yesterday, the Indianapolis Colts dressed 4 cornerbacks for that game because one of them got hurt when he ran into his teammate in pregame warmups. So Charvarius Ward, who was obviously the Colts' best cornerback, gets hurt and suffers his second concussion of the season, running into Drew Ogletree in pregame warmups. This was or just slightly after Anthony Richardson, who, let's face it, was not going to play a factor in yesterday's game, after Anthony Richardson got hurt in pregame warmups as well. The Indianapolis Colts had 0 players injured in yesterday's game. They had 2 players injured in warmups for yesterday's game. And so with that, what was the Colts' defensive game plan of having Mooney Ward just shadow Marvin Harrison Jr. completely gets blown up. Now, again, Griff, this is where I'll lean on your coaching expertise. If you decide to make a change in your game plan as a coach before a game, whether it's a Friday night game as a high school coach, a Saturday game as a college coach, a Sunday game as an NFL coach, how many hours, days of notice would you normally have before you had to make a change in your game plan? What would you like to see in a scenario like that?
Well, I'd like a week because that's the way I roll. I want all the time I can get. And, when you said DB's dressing, I was just thinking the cornerback. I completely forgot about the safeties, but a week would be nice. If not, at least 36 hours.
Right. So Lou Anarumo had 70 minutes to change his defensive game plan for the game yesterday because, again, they were going to go with cat coverage. Mooney Ward was covering Marvin Harrison Jr., knowing that opposite him, you have Mekhi Blackman, your third string slot cornerback in terms of Kenny Moore, and another guy who basically was signed to the active roster this week. That's what they had. And then Ward gets hurt. Now, in fairness, the Cardinals are playing a backup quarterback, albeit a veteran one in Jacoby Brissett. The Cardinals are down their top 2 running backs. And then Marvin Harrison Jr. gets hurt in the second quarter. But still, the Colts' defensive game plan changes completely. And so I think you got to grade yesterday's game on a bit of a curve. The good news is the offense was fantastic. And the Cardinals, while they are now 2-4, they have been very tough to score against in the red zone. They had not given up a lot of points, period. The Cardinals had come in averaging giving up 19 points a game. The Colts had 31. The Colts went 4 for 4 on red zone drives, ending in touchdowns yesterday. That one was a battle. The Colts found a way to win at 31-27, but they are in desperate need of cornerback help. The good news is, Shannon, is that I think Kenny Moore will come back and play this week against the Chargers.
Well, the first thing, if I'm Shane Steichen, I'm doing today is finding out what in the world are we doing in pregame to lose 2 guys before the kick. That would be number one.
Again, the Anthony Richardson thing just seems to be his natural bad luck. And so literally he is warming up with like a stretching band. And there is a metal apparatus as part of that band. The band snaps, the piece of metal hits him in the eye.
Oh, geez.
I mean, that's just right. That's just blind, stupid luck, and not good luck at all. Again, was Anthony going to factor in yesterday's game? No. But now what has to be talked about is that the Colts have been as busy as any team in terms of hitting the waiver wire for defensive help. But now they may be forced, and we have talked about, potentially the Colts being a candidate to make a trade to bolster their roster. And I think they would absolutely do that. 3 weeks away from the from the trade deadline. But Shannon, now the problem is, I think you'd bring another quarterback, and this is where, just because you like Riley Leonard long term, I'm not sure on a potential, division championship level team, of which we're talking about, a potential 1 seed level team in the AFC, which we are now talking about with this football team. I'm not sure Riley Leonard's your backup quarterback. So because Anthony suffered an orbital bone fracture. In other words, I think he's going to the IR, exactly, and I think he's done for the year. And so now the conversation has become, all right, who do you bring as the veteran backup that you hope never has to play the rest of the season, but it's a move you've got to make in terms of having an insurance policy. So now you've got that player move to think about. And in terms of the Mooney Ward thing, again, that was bad luck too. And of all players he's going to run into, if you have not seen Drew Ogletree, that man is a sequoia. He's about 6'5" and 275. He's frankly my diet away from being a right tackle. And so as you just literally, they're within like 20 yards of each other. Mooney kind of makes a turn. Drew doesn't see him coming. Ward bounces off of Ogletree. Drew just stands there because, again, like I said, he's a tree. And all of a sudden Mooney goes flying, and he sits there for several minutes. And finally they kind of put a towel over his head and walk him back to the locker room, and he's deemed to be out with a concussion. So the warm-up patterns might change a little bit. And on Anthony, on Anthony, it's just one of those things you're like, you know what? Maybe it's just not meant to be for this guy because he is, again, he is a freakishly good athlete, but can't seem to catch a break from an injury standpoint.
No. And you let me know when you need to drop off here, sir, because, again, I'm sitting in for Jimmy and trying to make sure we get the flow right, and I don't want to keep you too long. Okay.
You're good.
Colts now head out west to play the Chargers 4-2, which will be another darn good ball game. And this complimentary football that I feel the Colts have played better part of this year already, that's going to be a tough one for them to overcome. That game, not to overcome, but to continue to play at a high level with the Chargers.
Correct. And so I can give you good news, bad news in terms of how the Colts match up with the Chargers. First of all, I'm fully convinced that the Colts, as they are currently built offensively, given the fact that they got through that game healthy and all of their weapons, top 3 receivers, Tyler Warren, Jonathan Taylor, Daniel Jones, offensive line, the Colts are going to put some points up on the Chargers. Because I think right now the Colts are putting points up on everybody as long as they stay healthy. So that's the good news. On defense, it's a mixed bag. All right. You've heard me bemoan the myriad of cornerback injuries that they have gone through this year. The other thing that I didn't kind of get to, and if you want to criticize the Colts defense performance yesterday, that's fine. Again, grade the defensive backs on the curve. They had to get home more against Jacoby Brissett. Not the most mobile quarterback. The Colts sacked him twice. The Colts pass rush, I thought, was pretty anemic yesterday. The good news on that front is that the Chargers are down both of their starting tackles. And so in theory, the pass rush has been kind of literally hit or miss. There's been days when it's looked great, and there's been days when it looked non-existent. And yesterday was the latter. I do think they will have a more effective pass rush just because the Chargers are fighting uphill. You are correct. The Chargers are a good football team. This will be another test for the Indianapolis Colts. And this is one, if you lose, not the end of the world, but that we are now to the point where we're talking about tiebreakers, for things like home playoff games, because the Colts are owners of one of the best records in the National Football League. It is them, the Bucs, and it's the Bills if they win tonight. That's it. That's the only teams that are 5-1 through 6 weeks. So to some degree, this Chargers game is a house money game, but again, it further helps their path in January and February if they can win this game. And, Shannon, you talked about, everything kind of rolling together from a scheduling standpoint. October is like that. I made this yesterday when I brought up the Hoosiers and the Colts. Folks, we might want to start clearing our calendars for meaningful football games in January and February, because it is trending in that direction, both for the Colts and the Hoosiers at this point.
Yeah, and going on the road in the NFL, playing in the opposing team's stadium, whether it's in the Midwest, East Coast, or the West Coast, is always a tough task, no matter who you play or what their record may or may not be. It's just that way when you have a lot of parity in the league, and not to mention now the Colts facing adversity, as you have so eloquently pointed out, with injuries. And that's another thing that everybody's at this point of the year. Everybody's bumped, battered, and bruised. And unfortunately for the Colts, their injuries are coming at the wrong time, at the wrong segment.
Right. And again, every team deals with this. All right. And so this is, we make these predictions before the season starts in a vacuum, just assuming everybody's going to stay healthy. The team as it looks now, here's where things going to happen. And so often is the crapshoot. Like, for example, nobody thought when the Colts and Ravens got together that one team would be 5-1, the other team would be 1-5, and when they open the preseason against each other, and it's reversed. If you had said, "Hey, there's a 5-1 team, there's a 1-5 team," most of us that cover the Colts would go, "Oh no, the quarterback position didn't work out." No, it's worked out great. It's the Colts that are 5-1, and not the Ravens being 1-5. So everybody goes through this. It's just for the Colts. Seemingly every injury has been at one position. It's been at the cornerback position. I'm not sure we have time in this segment for me to list all of the different players that the Colts have gone through at the cornerback position this year. They may have to start putting like "Hello, my name is" on the helmet for the coaching staff because they have gone through so many dudes. But it's just that seems to be the bugaboo for the Colts this year. Yet, if we can have this conversation and the Colts be 5-1, life's pretty good in the exchange.
Well, that's just like I was talking with Don Fischer prior to you jumping on. It's kind of remarkable where Indiana, and in that respect, now the Colts are at their point in times in the season, and both teams facing adversity, losing some key players at games. You talked about having to change your game plan. Bryant Haynes at Iowa literally had to change it on the flop, because of not having D'Angelo Ponds. But again, that's part of it. That's why they get the big bucks. They got to be able to adapt, dust, and improvise. And hey, Colts have done it very well. That will continue to do it. And Daniel Jones, again, who was the biggest signing of the Colts have had in quite a while, because the way he's playing on Sunday afternoon as well.
You cut out in the middle. You referenced what free agent was it? Daniel Jones. You're referencing their coach.
Yeah. Daniel Jones signing was, again, now looks like the best thing that the Colts did in the offseason, and he continues to play well.
Well, seemingly the paradigm as to how you go out and get a quarterback is starting to change in the National Football League, because now apparently Restoration Hardware is the way to go to find your quarterback. Because Sam Darnold has been fantastic with the Seattle Seahawks. Daniel Jones clearly has been otherworldly playing for the Indianapolis Colts. He finally made a mistake yesterday in terms of trying to hit Mo Alley Cox in the flat. And then he proceeded to rush for a touchdown and throw for a couple of more touchdowns, after that. So, no, Daniel has been fantastic. And again, you and I can have a different level of conversation given your years in coaching. Go back and look at the catch that Alec Pierce made kind of over his back shoulder, 26-yard grab late in the game. That was basically a look at me call. That was Daniel and Alec having a conversation during the week, basically saying, if they give you this look, I don't care what route is called, you go run this. And that's exactly what happened. And so Daniel is so locked into film study and is doing things at such a higher level. It is remarkable to see, because I don't think anybody saw this coming. I think most thought that Daniel Jones could be an upgrade over Anthony Richardson at quarterback. Nobody thought it would be to this level, Shannon.
No, absolutely. And kudos to the front office who had that mindset to go out and find somebody that they thought could be a big-time signing in the offseason to provide competition. And lo and behold, they found themselves a pretty darn good quarterback. So that one, you got to give the front office staff their due on that one. Well, Mr. Rakestraw, I appreciate you joining us here today on the Monday edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We got high school football coming towards the end of the season. The sectional draw was yesterday. Didn't even get a chance to ask you a couple things there, but maybe next time I can push a couple of the high school playoff games that are in picture now that we've had the draw. But have a great week. We'll catch you again at another point in time.
Sounds good, buddy. Take care.
All right, Greg Rakestraw, voice of the Indianapolis Colts post-game show. Appreciate him for joining us today. We're going to step out and take another break here, but we'll all be right back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after these messages.
The ISC Sports Network is your home for sports content across the Hoosier State. Find us live on TV and streaming or archived on our website and our app. The ISC is your one-stop shop for the content you want to see, including high school sports, college sports, and other great events throughout the year. Subscribe to our streaming service and get access to it all. ISC, local lives here.
Know a team or group needing a fundraiser? Boost Fundraising raises more money faster and offers the most unique and user-friendly online fundraiser in the nation. Your team receives personalized fundraising pages for each team member. Free team-branded promo gifts shipped to each donor. Boost Fundraising does it all. Sports teams, marching bands, charity causes, and community groups. Go to boostfundraising.com and be sure to enter the promo code COYLE, that's C-O-Y-L-E, to receive a discounted fundraiser. If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemore@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today. When it comes to apparel and promotions, Freethink has you covered, literally, whether it's 24 or 200 shirts for sports leagues, businesses, or groups. Freethink Apparel and Promotions can also create your very own merchandising store. Freethink Apparel and Promotions did it for Indiana SportsBeat Radio, and they can do it for you. Whether it's screen printing, embroidery, digital printing, promotional products, vehicle wraps, or anything else under the promotional line. See what Freethink Apparel and Promotions can do for you at freethinkapparel.com.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle. I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith. Glad to have you along here on a great sunny and Monday to kick off the week. I want to thank Greg Rakestraw and the voice of the Indiana Hoosiers, Don Fischer. Appreciate them. Coming up shortly will be Dustin Dopirak of the Indianapolis Star. We'll get some of his takes on the Pacers. As I said, everything's getting rolling here shortly, as well as college basketball will be kicking off. And I got a great feeling that this Indiana basketball season with under Coach DeFries could be another quick turnaround to a certain degree. I think he's got the right stuff in the making, because I think he is a really good basketball coach that has the ability to adapt to the players that he has at his disposal and put them in the best possible positions to go compete consistently against whoever they play. That one is going to be a something to watch as we head through the basketball season as well. Again, talking about Indiana, the Hoosiers, and their top thing for this year with some of the things that there I am, undersized for this game against Oregon. And I do hope that everyone can now hear me. Give me a thumbs up. Yay, hey. If not, but I can remove this scene just for the sake of argument purposes. But Indiana on the day, offensively had a pretty darn good ball game, over 300 yards in total, and offense, and as well as Mendoza had a good day again. But Elijah Surratt had a great one, and I wanted to show again Indiana's biggest two plays of the day. First, Surratt's touchdown, and then Isaiah Jones' pick that ultimately sealed the win for Indiana.
Down and goal. Fernando takes the snap. They pressure him. The throw to the end zone. Touchdown! Wow, what a play. And it was actually Surratt who made the catch. But I'm telling you what now, that was some throw by Fernando Mendoza.
And I think they're going to blitz 4.
Here's the snap back to Moore. He throws it.
It's an interception.
Intercepted by Indiana. The Hoosiers come up with it, and Isaiah Jones comes up with a pick, and Indiana gets the football back again. 2 minutes and 1 second remaining in this contest, and Indiana gets the ball back.
Well, there you go. Indiana did get the ball back in that final seconds as the great Don Fischer, with his call of the game on Saturday there in Eugene, giving the Hoosiers that 30-20 win. And again, statistically speaking, Indiana did quite well against a high-powered offense as well as a defense that, quite frankly, was playing well as well as any defense in the Big Ten and in the country. And Indiana offense, boy, did they get some key drives at the right time. And the one thing that impressed the most was their ability to answer any type of score that Oregon mustered on Saturday. Oregon only managed 6 total points in the red zone. 6. That's it. Crazy. And they had done quite well on the season. So when you do that stuff, is really good. And I saw earlier that somebody had said the field goal before halftime was huge. And that was correct, because if you remember, Oregon had just missed their field goal. Indiana orchestrates a quick drive down the field, and boom, 58-yarder to end the half to give Indiana the lead at halftime, 13-10. And the hush became on the crowd. And now we get to talk to the one and only Mr. Dustin Dopirak from the Indianapolis Pacers. Sir, how are you doing today?
Doing good, Coach Griff. How you doing?
Good. And you've been covering the Pacers for the Indy Star for what now? What year is this for you?
This is going to be year 4.
4.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is going to be a weird one. But nobody's talking about the Pacers right now. Everybody's talking about IU football. Even Rick Carlisle's talking about IU football. Rick came to because they played. I mean, we didn't get to watch the whole thing on Saturday because the Pacers tipped off at 7. So we had pregame, everything going on. But I mean, it was on TV in the background, and I think when we all went up to press row to wait for tip off, that's kind of when the game finished up. So I didn't get to see to break down everything, but it is. They're the talk of everywhere. That's all everybody was talking about at Gamebridge on Saturday night was just, wait a minute, IU football beat Oregon. And it was amazing stuff. And you kept looking over me like, but they're still up. Okay, wait a minute. All right, they might win this thing. So,
well, as I was talking to, of course, the one and only Don Fischer this morning, Indiana finally kind of broke that glass ceiling. Sure. That they needed to have a win like they got at Oregon because they beat number 9 Illinois and, took them behind the woodshed and, did, took care of that business. Then the goalposts started moving in the national spotlight. Well, Illinois must not have been that good. Well, that's because AP polls and things that you guys put out are garbage the first 2 weeks of the season. So don't hold Indiana accountable for your stupidity. But, then they went to Iowa, got that win, and everybody still wanted to keep moving the goalpost. And now it was just about, okay, Oregon. Oregon will destroy them. And literally many media type out there were saying that Indiana was going to get smoked by Oregon. Well, there's a lot of different narratives being spun in the last 48 hours about Indiana football. And you hit on it. It's kind of captivated, the state of Indiana. And I said this before the season, the enthusiasm for Indiana football was broader than just Bloomington. It had started getting to the state. I don't know, how would you say that's a fair interpretation of kind of where Indiana football is now because of what you stated there about the Pacers and Carlisle and everybody kind of wanting to see what the scenario is with these Hoosiers?
Yeah, I mean, well, like there's a few things to it. I mean, obviously you know the breakdown of the state in terms of sort of where the pockets of Indiana fandom are versus the pockets of Purdue fandom versus the pockets of Notre Dame fandom. It's like it's different regionally. It's different in terms of really what you went to school for. I mean, like let's be like Indiana is the sort of more liberal arts sort of school, the engineering school, and depending on what direction you went is who you went to school and who you cheer for. And so Indy is obviously split. But I mean, I think there's this sense of like, wow, I mean, like there's still a state sense, even if you weren't an IU grad, even if you're not an IU fan, if you don't even like IU, you're like, wait a minute, like Indiana football is a top 10 team. Like, wow, how is this happening? I mean, it's a pretty amazing story, and especially when you broaden out from there. And it also tells you like, okay, like something must have changed in just the core of how college football operates. And that's true. I mean, like that this is a sign of here's how college football is different. This is possible in a way that it wasn't possible 10 years ago, 20 years ago. I mean, like the formula Curt Cignetti is doing this with, Tom Allen couldn't have done with it, much less Kevin Wilson, much less Bill Lynch or Terry Hebner or Bill Mallory. Like this, it was not available. You couldn't take your whole team from James Madison and say, hey guys, I believe you're this good. Let's go to the Big Ten and see what we can do. Like if you were coming from, an FCS school, if you were coming from the Sun Belt or the MAC or whatever, you couldn't just bring all your guys and expect them to make an impact. And now you can't. And so there are all kinds of narratives about what this is. I mean, I do think there are, to go back to what you said about moving the goalpost. I mean, I think there is an honest, and some people are just hating, don't get me wrong. And that's what they do. And that's kind of, there's a track in the profession that you could just hate on people. But like if you're looking at this even honestly and saying, okay, well, what like when they beat Illinois, you're like, all right, like they're probably a playoff team. They might be in the same spot they were in last year, where they'll be somewhere in that 8 to 12 range seed wise. Like, okay, but it's like, well, if they beat Oregon, it changes. And it's like, okay, like I don't think my thought was like, I don't think they'll beat Oregon, but if they do beat Oregon, then this is a much, much different ballgame, and different than beating Illinois. And Illinois is not as bad as you think. Illinois beat USC, don't forget.
Yeah, and then they just drummed Michigan.
It rides the roller coaster. I mean, like the AP poll is what it is. Like I'll defend it more than most because I like the explanation somebody had about it being a living historical document that like you view this as. The AP poll goes back to 1936, and like you can track a lot of things if you continue this. If you punt that experiment, then all of a sudden there's data that's not there anymore. And I get that. And it's like, since it doesn't have anything to do with the playoffs, it's fine. But Illinois is not bad. I mean, they were beating a good team, but it's like, okay, like it is a different story of are you a playoff team or are you a team that people think are going to win it? And like now you have to look at it and say Indiana might win it. Like that is the change there. And all of a sudden, like you kind of take Penn State off the board as, like they should win that game.
Even though it's in,
though it's in State College, you're talking a new coach, new quarterback. Like Ethan Grockmeyer's thrown 11 or 13 passes in his career so far. So, like they're going to be, new coach, new quarterback, mid-October. they're going to reel, like they're going to have to. There's no way that's not what happens. And so, but still, like the Oregon win is the Oregon win. Going out there and winning, like they're set. Like basically it's going to be a situation where it like unless they stub their toe in their way, and I'd be really surprised if they do, like you're looking at going into Indy, playing Ohio State for the number 1 seed in the playoffs on December. That's where things stand. And so, yeah, it is definitely, again, like obviously they could stub their toe, stuff happens. You get, you start to read your press clippings. That's a lot of time to still do that. But I think that's part of like, even if you're if you're like an honest arbiter of, okay, how good is Indiana really? You were still waiting to see this game to be able to say are they at this level or are they at that level? And, I think this Indiana proved without a doubt they're at that level. They're number 3 this week. They're going to be, like they're not moving unless they lose. So,
Well, you're right, and they still have some tough games in front of them. I mean,
yeah, it's not a lock. They're not.
Nobody's a lock at this point in the season. There's
Maryland.
always
Maryland is a little bit. I think Maryland's the game that you look at right now and say that's the one you got to be nervous about. And I guess UCLA all of a sudden.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've got again, anytime you go on the road, NFL or even in college football. Those are tough environments to win in, Maryland being one of them, as well as State College. And those are games that Indiana still has on the road.
Right.
Add to the equation now a UCLA team that's found themselves in 2 straight weeks.
Yeah.
Them going to Michigan State and winning was a big statement for them. So again, that's what that's the way it is in college football, and that's why Cignetti has done a great job in with this Hoosier team, because he's all about the now. Yeah. He's not about the past, the future. He's about the now, and he'll have his biggest challenge right now with this Indiana football team for 2 particular reasons. The noise on the outside as it pertains to Cignetti's name coming up for the jobs like Penn State and others.
Right.
That's number 1. And then number 2, you said it earlier, what Nick Saban refers to as rat poison.
Yeah.
Because you're reading your clippings and you made the statement win, and therefore you think you've arrived. And this is where Cignetti's probably his best of getting a team like Indiana going. I do have a question about the AP poll, because you kind of brought it up to me, and the historical facts that are ingrained in the AP poll. I know that everybody's so, I don't know, hyped about a preseason poll, and whether it's college football, college basketball, doesn't matter. I've always felt there should be no poll, especially now in the playoff era of college sports and football, until after week 4 or 5, when you have a good set of data that you can educate yourself on the teams, because let's face it, not everybody's watching every team.
Right.
But have an educated basis for how you rank teams, because that first 3 weeks of the season, throw darts, and you had people, especially in the South, that were subjectively putting Indiana either way below in the top 25 or not even in the top 25. I mean, there were actually sports writers that did not and would not put Indiana in the top 25. So I don't know. What's your take on that aspect of things to get legitimacy back in the polls?
I think so. Couple things to it. There are a couple different pieces to it. I mean, it starts with the idea, like before I say anything else, it's like I don't think it still has, like I know that there's some back of mind, possibility of the guys that meet people, not certainly not all guys, but the committee that determines playoff rankings. I mean, I do think by the time they actually do their work, number 1, you've taken a lot of that bias out of it. By the time you get to what's November 1st, I think, before they even put out a poll. So most of that stuff has shaken out, the AP stuff, basically. And I think they have a sense of, okay, this team was really there or it really wasn't. So I think that minimizes the impact in terms of who actually gets in to play in the championships, to play in the playoff. And being that it doesn't have that, being that it doesn't have that negative to it, then it becomes just about narrative, and it's just about how are people talking. And if it's just about how are people talking, then it doesn't bother me because I don't think it has a real effect. And think about, like, as far as the preseason pool is concerned, all the pool is concerned, college football is the talking sport. Like, let's remember, like, you play 12 regular season games, and you end up like you might end up with 16 or 17 maybe if you play every single possible game.
Yeah, something like that.
So out of 365 days a year, you play 17. Like, this really was driven home for me when I covered Tennessee football and just Tennessee football. I mean, I covered baseball, but it wasn't, it's like we've got to find something to say about Tennessee football in February, like you have to do something. And we had to run around, chase everything. And there were enough, I had to cover enough scandals there that I ended up having enough to do. But
absolutely,
when in the brief periods where we weren't in the middle of going to court, or looking at a subpoena or not a subpoena, looking at a lawsuit or something like that,
right?
Position, when I wasn't doing that, it was like, well, what do these rankings say, or what are that, if you're a college football town, like you need something, and it's like by the time you get to August, you're desperate for that poll, just to have something to talk about and have something kind of guiding the basis. And again, because it's just so talk driven, because again, there's just so, at the end of the day, little time when there's actually sports being played, your sports being played 12 days a year. So you have every week as a whole talking circuit, but that space between January and September, you're covering recruiting and everything like that. But as far as the team itself, expectations are part of it. And you want to say, okay, what are expectations really? And they're just such a big part of the game. So it's I don't have a problem with it, in part because that's college football is about talk, college football is chaos. There's not a there's not a method of making this thing fair. You're talking about 144 teams. They play 12 games a year. It's not really going to be fair. It's always going to be about perception. And the way the AP poll was structured in the first place is they did it with the idea that there would be bias, and they would correct the bias by getting everybody in from all over the country.
And they still, and for the most part, you could say that that's true, right? Yeah. Even nowadays.
Right. I mean, the goal is it's regionalized on purpose. You're not, when I had a poll, I didn't get a call from, like Ralph Russo would check in, because Ralph was running the thing then. But I didn't get asked by Ralph. I got asked by Mike Merritt, basically you're given, your state guy is, given, the charge of maintaining a couple voters or one or two voters or whatever it might be, depends on the state. But it's his job to keep that in mind and know who he wants to get at any given point in time. If somebody, I had to quit in the middle of the year because, I got moved over to Pacers in November. So I said, hey, I'm leaving, and Mike had to go call somebody. And I think he got Zach to finish it out. So it is regionalized on purpose. This goes back from years and years before you could get every game on TV, before you could get more than 5 games on TV. That was kind of the expectation was, all right, this bias will be metered out by the fact that we're going to spread this. Even if you have people going against, the Heisman's the same way. You have this regionalization that you do, so you build up enough voters to kind of, work that out. So it still has its value of a historic document. I think it also being able to say, okay, this is where this is the biggest drop off from preseason voting to the end. And so you have all of this, and that's part of the narrative of college football is this is what we thought, and this is what it ended up being. And, part of college football is about how wrong we are. That's part of the story of how wrong we are at the beginning. And how every once in a while you're right. Every once in a while you see a team and everybody knows in July that they're going to be that good.
Well, sure.
And you've seen that over the years. And sometimes you're totally wrong. And that's part of the history and the lore of, remember when this team was on the cover of Sports Illustrated and everybody everybody talked about how great this guy was going to be and that person was going to be, and they ended up going 8-4 or whatever and playing in the Gator Bowl, and like that, or they had this dramatic thing happen, they had their quarterback get hurt, like it's part of the lore, and us being like, again, like it's the sport that involves the most talk, the most projection, the most guessing, because you're sitting around not watching the game 300 and some odd days out of the year, and 12 days, 12 to 16 days, you actually go to the stadium and watch a football game happen. And the rest of it, you talk about it. So the AP poll is part of that tradition, is we spend a lot of time talking and guessing what would happen. I mean, shoot, the old days before you even had a playoff, you had to guess who would win,
Yeah.
Like before before even the Rose Bowl, when the Rose Bowl was just like, we're going to have the Big Ten champ and the Pac-10 champ, and I don't care how high they're ranked, that's who's playing. Like you had to guess who would win Michigan and Nebraska. You had to guess who would win Penn State or Nebraska. You had to guess who would win Miami or Washington. That was part of it. It's a different, and like we kind of need the AP poll to remind us that that's what we used to do.
Right.
Like that's part of the history. It's a crazy, ridiculous, chaotic game. If you're a college football fan, you signed up for the chaos. So like this is all part of what spins it around, but it's better that you have a playoff, you have a committee that is supposed to push that stuff aside and decide on its guys there. But even then they're going to yell about bias. The SEC is going to want 10 teams in. They're all going to lose 2 games. They're about to have.
They're already pushing for 5.
Crap out of each other. They're all going to have 2 losses, and they're going to be like, "Well, they all should get in. All 8 of them."
Yeah, they're already pushing for 5. They're already pushing for 5. They've already strong-armed the committee by bringing the strength of record in, and because that's what kept Ole Miss out from last year. Because had that been in, Indiana, quote unquote, would have got booted out and they would have been inserted. What's funny now, I think Indiana's strength of record is somewhere in the top 5 now in the country. So it is kind of amusing. Hey, you got a chance to stick around for another segment?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Hey, we're going to step out, take another break. We'll be back with more Indiana SportsBeat Radio right after these messages.
If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemore@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today. When it comes to apparel and promotions, Freethink has you covered, literally, whether it's 24 or 200 shirts for sports leagues, businesses, or groups. Freethink Apparel and Promotions can also create your very own merchandising store. Freethink Apparel and Promotions did it for Indiana SportsBeat Radio, and they can do it for you. Whether it's screen printing, embroidery, digital printing, promotional products, vehicle wraps, or anything else under the promotional line. See what Freethink Apparel and Promotions can do for you at freethinkapparel.com.
Huddle up, football fans. Tailgate season is here, and nobody gets you ready for game day like Academy Sports and Outdoors. Swing by your local Academy store or shop online at academy.com to find everything you need, from grills to jerseys and more. Be a watch party legend with gear from top brands like Nike and Under Armour, all at unbeatable prices every day. With 8 Academy stores across Indiana, including our Bloomington location, fun can't lose, and neither can you. Gear up today at Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Whether it's a night out with the family, after work with colleagues, or catching the game with friends, Bubba's 33 is the place for you. Bubba's 33 offers a mouth-watering menu of selections that are all made from scratch every day. The portions are big, but the prices are small. And with over 50 big screen TVs, you'll never miss the big game. Bubba's 33, pizza, burgers, beer.
Welcome back to the Indiana SportsBeat Radio, our Monday edition with Jim Coyle. I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith, alongside Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star. And we've been talking a multitude about IU football and their big win Saturday, as well as some of the AP polls and things of that nature. You know, one thing I did want to get your opinion on, because you brought up the SEC, and this has kind of gotten to the point, like you said, this is the talking point that we're getting to with 12 teams that probably is going to go to 16. Let's just face it. They're going to go to 16 probably as soon as next year, but probably no later than 27. Do you think that's what college football needs? I mean, the expansion, they just got to 12. You talked about the old BCS days when they had 4, the argument and this and that goes on, going to 16 within a year or two of actually getting to a 12-team tournament. And this is already being discussed in college basketball as well.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on this ultimate expansion of these, the tournaments and such? And I get it, that's money, part of it, but kind of what's your point? What's your insight to that aspect of college athletics in terms of the expansion with football and basketball?
I think there's two different. There's one question that like I and everybody else is qualified to speak on, and the other that like I'm less because I don't cover college sports anymore, and it's changing so dramatically all the time. The finance element of it is like it's a moving target. But it's moving in one direction. The number is getting bigger and bigger and bigger in terms of like what you have to do to continue to finance this operation. Because it's making sure it's like. These people are going, these guys are going to get paid at some point. It is definitely careening towards it being paid by the schools as opposed to being paid by, NIL and outside and all this kind of stuff. And so if that's going to start to be the case, you're going to need more money in the system. And so you're going to need more games. You're going to need more, stadiums. You're going to need more. You need more packed stadiums. You're going to need to use. Like it goes back to what I said about the talking things. You're only using these stadiums so many days a year. Like you're going to have to find more ways of packing people into that and getting people in the seats to watch these guys. And so it is going to go that direction because the number, the cost of admission is getting bigger.
Oh man, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's just everything, and like. To keep this, just to keep the tuition paid for, forget even on top of the NIL, whatever else is being paid, like that's going up, so the price of everything is going up. So you got to look for revenue streams, constantly look for revenue streams to bring it in. So that piece to it, like, I don't know where that ends. And like, I haven't had to, care specifically about the numbers. Like I know it's bigger cause I'm, alive. 2025, but I don't know what it is or where the endpoint is. I think from a product standpoint, in terms of like what, considering college football I've watched all my life and like what I think makes college football as thrilling as it is, I think 8 is the number that makes sense. But I also think, 5 or 6 conferences made sense. So that's do it. Like the fact that you don't have a viable Pac-12 right now is dumb. There should be a conference for teams on the Pacific Coast and the mountain region to play each other as opposed to playing in the Big Ten and the ACC. Like we are way too big of a country for that group of teams not all to play each other and that be their league.
Yeah.
But I would have thought, it was 5 or it was 6 when the Big East still existed as a football entity, like conference champs, wild cards after that, 8 teams, 3 weeks of games, like quarters, semifinals, finals. There you go. That makes sense. It's a fair path for everybody. And championships matter because it's just like, hey, like you can't speak to everybody else's conference and everybody else's league and why they're this is like in that case, it's just, hey, like you play your league, everybody in your situation is mostly fair. And then, it's that. And also in that case is the schedules are more balanced. Like you've got a better chance of playing everybody else that's good in your league. And, so it's like, all right, like if the SEC, if you're Alabama and you had to play, LSU and Ole Miss and, Texas A&M and whatever, and a team from the SEC East, and then if you're the Big Ten, you had to play Ohio State, you had to play Penn State, you had to play Michigan, like all that. Everybody's gonna end up with a tough enough schedule, and whoever's the champions out of each of those leagues gets in, and then you could say, okay, well, there should be leeway for someone else, a couple other teams that didn't win their championship to get in, and that's it, and then you have 8 teams and they battle it out, like that makes sense for me. Like once you get to 12, 16 doesn't bother me. It's like, like if you can make the same cases for if that's the level, like 12 to 16 isn't as much. Where I used to think, okay, remember, like it used to be like you couldn't lose, like if you were going to lose a game, you probably were not going to have a crack at it because it used to be 1 versus 2 and that's it.
Right.
You could say, all right, like, there were some years where number 1, number 2 were obvious and it was like, nobody else really mattered, like it was like Texas USC the one year. You're like, okay, look, Miami, Ohio State, like there wasn't anybody that you were like, well, that team should get a crack at it. It was like, no, there are 2 teams that are good enough and that's it. Then you have years where you're like, okay, there's 3 that deserve a chance, or there's 4 that deserve a chance, or that would be a fun semifinals, and you rarely thought 5, 6, or 7, like really deserved a shot at the national title. But it's like, okay, like if you're going to have a system, like, because in that case, it was all, still just, what people thought, and it's like, if you're going to have a system, it should involve championships, it should involve actually winning your league. And so, I don't think, but it's like between 12 and 16, it's like, all right, like, did Indiana deserve it and Ole Miss didn't deserve it? I mean, like, I think they're more of a case. I do think just from a narrative standpoint, like I do think it was good to put Indiana in there and find out how good they really were, because it's so rare. It's been such a rare historical opportunity. You didn't know if it was going to happen again. So put them in there, let them experience it. Like Ole Miss will have other chances, Indiana, it's like, but all of a sudden Indiana is going to have other chances. So what do we know? But
what was funny about that is, before this week, Ole Miss and Texas A&M, I believe, were both 4 and 5. Oklahoma was 6. So Oklahoma loses to Texas. Indiana gets a big win on the road at Oregon and leapfrogs both of those teams into the number 3 spot. So it was kind of like, whoa, that's poetic justice right there. Sure. So, but I get you. The it's a money thing. Probably the biggest part, because we are in an era where athletic departments, schools for that matter, they need money to pay this rev share and other things that go with it, remaking stadiums for the dollars that are being charged at the gate. Those are only going to go up, because of that. So it would be nice at some point in time, if it were possible, that they could leverage what they're getting in these athletic departments as well to maybe reduce some of the costs of their students going to school at said school.
Yeah. If they got to pay the players, there's not even the opportunity to do that.
Right.
Like it's tough. It's just,
I just wish that there was that avenue potentially there to do that.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk some Pacers, because everything's ramping up there. This summer was kind of a unique summer. They had some changes, which is always happening in the NBA.
Right.
What do you see Carlisle's vision for this year? We talked about potentially being a more physical, pressure-oriented defense that's going to capitalize on mistakes and turnovers, opposed to that heavy shooting, offensive-minded team. Not that they're going to stop being offensive-minded, but maybe not to the extent they were a year ago.
Yeah, I think the changes to gravity. I mean, by the end of last year, like obviously they really ramped up full court pressure starting about December of last year. I mean, there's been a defensive evolution really since, and Carlisle continues to point this out, going back to Christmas, basically the day after Christmas 2023, they made a lineup change to be like, okay, like we've got to finally care about defense, because this was, before that in that season they were, they won a game 157 to 152, and they're like, well, we can't do this. This is not going to work. At the end of the day, we got to play some defense, because they weren't guarding anybody. And so they really ramped it up at that point and said, okay, we got to start caring about this. And they got better over the course of that year. And last year they were like a top 10 defense. I mean, they were pretty good. I think they ended up being top 15, but like really from like they amped it up again, like after that 10 and 15 start where it wasn't very good, they leaned into defense. They got Andrew Nembhard back he had some knee tendonitis and he wasn't right he missed a month, and then he had about 2-3 weeks where he just, he was still kind of in the ramp up period. And really, since they really let Nembhard go wild, they started playing a lot more pressure. And so they're still going to lean into that. And, one thing that Rick said last year was that, our physicality has to be our persistence. And I thought that was a really good line that ended up proving that, kind of playing out. And the idea was, we're going to outrun you. We're going to exhaust you. We're going to make this a distance race. And, we're going to trust that we have more endurance than you can. We can pick up full court all game defensively. It's not like full court trap like you play in college or whatever, where you're trying to get a turnover on every single possession and it's 5 guys scrambling. But it's, like the guy that's picking up the ball is 94 feet from the bucket. He is covering the inbounds pass and, making you work 5, 6, 7 seconds before you get across the timeline. And that's getting into your legs over the course of the game. And so they're going to still do that. And I think they have a good sense of their principles and what they want to do. And they're going to try to run, when they can push the pace, when they can get easy baskets early in the clock, when they can catch you celebrating off a made basket, or when you're not, getting back quick enough off a defensive rebound, or when you turn the ball over, they're going to run and they're going to try to score in transition. The difference is going to be once they get into half court, like Tyrese Halliburton has so much gravity. And you're not going to have that anymore. They're going to try to do the same things. But where it changes is Tyrese Halliburton is going to draw 2 bodies frequently, and Pascal Siakam is going to draw 2 bodies frequently. You take one of the guys out of there that can draw that kind of defensive attention. And so in a lot of cases, you're going to have to shoot a contested shot.
Right.
I think one thing I noticed in the first game, and these guys didn't play in the second game, but like Aaron Nesmith and Pascal Siakam both took 3s off the dribble. I looked into the data, and it's crazy how few, like Tyrese Halliburton had to take a lot off the dribble, but and the NBA has tracking data. I think Aaron Nesmith, he missed 35 games, but I think he hit 72 threes on catch and shoot and 11 off the bounce. And that's how wide the gap was for just about everybody, outside of Halliburton and Benedict Mathurin were the 2 guys that had made more off the dribble than they made off a catch and shoot. So they're used to being able to just catch and shoot. Like the ball moves, it pops. There's 2 bodies on Halliburton, and then everybody else has got to rotate and scramble. And at some point, there's an open guy, and that's what they were very, very good at, is finding that open guy. And they're getting wide open threes. And so by the NBA's sort of tracking definition, a majority are either wide open or very wide open. Threes they were getting last year. And so they're going to have to take 3s off the bounce. Like guys that didn't have to create their own last year are going to have to create their own. And, that's going to be the difference, is that you're going to see more of that, because there's just the open shot, the wide open shot that ball movement would create is not going to be as open, because they're not going to have to be, defenses aren't going to be a scramble, because they're not going to have to put multi-guy attention on one guy as much. That you're still going to see it with Pascal. He's got that kind of gravity, and he's going to bring the ball up too. That's going to be another thing. Last year it was Nembhard was the secondary ball handler, and there were occasions when, to get defensive pressure off of Halliburton, they would have Nembhard bring the ball up so Halliburton could run off some screens and, get some motion and get some kind of downhill action, by running, have to run off of something, or just making the guy work with Halliburton operating without the ball. Nembhard slides in, becomes the point guard. And so they need somebody else to take some pressure off of him. So that's going to be Siakam, who has that, who has that experience, did that a lot in Toronto after Kawhi Leonard left. So that's what you're going to see. And I think that's where you're going to see the main difference. And, but health is a big issue already. TJ McConnell's out for a month. And so that's a tough break, hamstring. And so, they had to let one point guard go sign another one. Cameron Payne was your starting point guard in the preseason game on Saturday night. And he had been on the team for 2 days. He got in and has to learn how to, he's 30 years old, 31 years old. He's been in the league for 10 years. Certainly he has the capacity to process a lot of things really, really fast. But it is a tough ask and I don't know who they'll play tonight. It's obviously a kind of moving target in terms of who plays who. The Thunder didn't even bring 10 of their guys to Indiana on Saturday night. So everybody plays these preseason games different, you don't need to win them. That's not the point.
Right.
So, you don't know who's going to be there, who's not going to be there, and what kind of work you get and whatnot. So, Cam might start again. He might not. You'll see this play out. But, he's the backup point guard right now. And the guy he would say was third string, Quentin Jackson, had a sore right hamstring. And we don't know the severity of that yet. And he's a 2-way contract guy. And Jackson played better at point guard last night. If you had to go into a game right now, Jackson, if he was healthy, Jackson would be your backup point guard, but behind Andrew Nembhard. So if they're missing him too, that's tough. And so, it's tough deal that they're in. Johnny Furphy dinged up his ankle, so Ben Shepherd is just ramping his way back up. So, I mean, if they've got 10 days before the opener. And if they had to play right now, they'd have some issues. So, to Brian S.'s point, if Furphy and Walker are healthy, they have a chance to make things better. Walker's been up and down. Like some things I've seen from him, not like some others. So we'll see. Oladipo's in China, by the way. He's playing for the Guangzhou Lions, I think, and they've played some preseason games against the NBA team. So we'll see if somebody signs him before the season starts. It could happen. But yeah, a lot of moving parts there for the Pacers, and McConnell getting hurt is a tough break, and they really, I still think this team can be competitive. I think this team, because of the just muscle memory it's got, they've got a lot of guys that know how to execute the system and do what they're supposed to do. That'll make them a tough out. But couple injuries changes the calculus. If they lose Siakam, if they were to lose Siakam for any amount of time, they've got trouble. If they were to lose Nembhard for any amount of time, they got real trouble. But even this McConnell injury hurts. It's their early season schedule is pretty stacked. You go from, first 4 games I think are all against playoff teams. Then they play the Hawks after that. The Hawks look pretty good. They got Golden State. I think, I think the one team that should be an easy win before TJ comes back, if he were to come back exactly 1 month from the injury, would be Brooklyn. But they've got Thunder in the opener. It's Memphis, Minnesota, Dallas. You're looking at playoff caliber teams there. Come home, it's Atlanta, Golden State, Milwaukee, and it's nothing but playoff caliber teams. And so beating them without TJ is tough, because just you need that depth. That's
right.
That's what separates you, because you don't have your top play, one of your top players. In that case, you need to lean into depth, and TJ has made that second unit really, really good. And so you take him out of that equation, and it's tough. Like I said, you're going to need Furphy and Walker to step up. You're going to need Obi Toppin to be really good. You're going to need whoever plays point guard to be really good, and to give you a chance. And so, you're going to need to at least play close in those second unit minutes. And to be able to beat teams. So it's a tough break. They're playing really well in these preseason games. They've won each of them, and they've looked
right.
Good, but it's preseason. You don't, and if while you're doing that, you're losing guys, then you're losing. That's the thing that, what preseason games you win don't really matter. It's coming out of it healthy that's most important. And so
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Dustin, I really appreciate you sticking around for a couple segments today here on the Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Again, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your week. And like I said, you're going to be full speed ahead here before too long. And
10 days, man. 10 days it gets rolling. So
yeah, you better get the pencil sharpened back up, right?
Definitely will. Definitely getting ready for it.
All right. Thanks you so much, buddy. Dustin Dopirak from the Indianapolis Star. Appreciate him for joining us today, as giving his insight, not only to the Pacers, but as well as the Indiana Hoosiers football. Good conversation there. Hey, when we're going to step aside once again, we come back, we'll talk a little bit more Big Ten football, the scene that is the conference, and all that and more here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle right after these messages.
Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue, and you get it for just 0.9% financing. Or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer and your best place for new and used vehicles. If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemore@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today.
Huddle up, football fans. Tailgate season is here, and nobody gets you ready for game day like Academy Sports and Outdoors. Swing by your local Academy store or shop online at academy.com to find everything you need, from grills to jerseys and more. Be a watch party legend with gear from top brands like Nike and Under Armour, all at unbeatable prices every day. With 8 Academy stores across Indiana, including our Bloomington location, fun can't lose, and neither can you. Gear up today at Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Zach Browning here to tell you about an offer you simply can't pass up. If you're looking for the best coverage of Indiana football and basketball, which includes recruiting, weekly chats, podcasts, as well as access to the best national team out there, then look no further than thehoosier.com. The best part, it's just $1 for the first week. Oh, and did I mention that you get a full year of access to The Athletic when you sign up? You can't beat the coverage, and you can't beat the deal. So head over to thehoosier.com today and sign up for just $1. It'll be the best decision you ever made.
Welcome back to Indiana SportsBeat Radio with Jim Coyle, the Monday edition. I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith, sitting in for the one and only Jim Coyle. Still 3 time zones away out there in Eugene. Positive he'll be back tomorrow. Thanks for joining me, the rookie, the bullpen guy, the right-hander out of the bullpen. Appreciate that and the questions that you guys have presented all day long. Appreciate that. If you got time and a chance, make sure you're subscribing to Indiana SportsBeat Radio's YouTube page, as well as other platforms such as Facebook, and you can follow Jim at Jim Coyle, ISB. I am at Coach Griff 55, as well as at Hoosier Tailgate. And speaking of the tailgate, we will have our regular Monday night show here at 7:30 this evening, recapping this Indiana win and other things in and around the Big Ten, as it was a busy weekend around the nation when it came to college football, and some great games as well that took place. Right now, Indiana is 3-0 in the conference, as we know, 6-0 overall. Ohio State Buckeyes as well. And then we got a lot of one-loss teams in conference race. USC, Iowa, let's see here, Michigan, Minnesota, Nebraska, Northwestern, I think has got only one loss. I mean, there is UCLA. It's crazy. And Washington has looked really good this year. They looked good the other day as well in their ball game. And they are looking good under Jed Fish's second year. And that's been a job that he took over when Kalen DeBoer went to Alabama late last year. So he arrived there on Washington's campus late in the process. And really, this is his first full year of recruiting, portal, and things of that nature, having to put together a staff, rehiring a defensive coordinator since Belichick's son has gone on to North Carolina, which I'm sure he may be regretting at the particular moment, because that in itself has been a crazy story there with Belichick and North Carolina and all the different things that are coming out of that. But right now, Ohio State and Indiana firmly atop of the Big Ten. And we're right there at that kind of halfway point in the year. So a lot of games to be played. Indiana still has some challenging games. They have Michigan State coming up this week, UCLA. After that, you've got Wisconsin on the docket, a trip to Maryland, and of course the bucket game at Purdue this year. So we're still a far away from the actual finish line, and that will be the challenge for these Hoosiers, is to continue to play at that high level now that they've kind of broken that glass ceiling, and all eyes are truly on Bloomington at the moment, and we'll see what all transpires as we move forward through this Big Ten season. You know, statistically right now, it's really an interesting dynamic when you look at the stats. Maryland has had a good offensive game this year when you look at it because of their young freshman phenom. So a lot of power in the offensive side of the ball in the Big Ten. And then you can't rule out some of the defenses that are in the Big Ten doing well outside of Indiana, Illinois. Good rebound after their definite debacle against the Hoosiers. Michigan has a strong D. Washington. I mean, so the Big Ten has really, I think, raised their profile in a lot of ways that still will have to, of course, fight off the national narratives when it comes to how many teams the Big Ten will get in this year. I do think they will get their 4 teams in, whether or not the SEC gets a 5th team or what, we'll see. But that's really not, a point that needs to be discussed now because we're still a long ways from that in terms of the actual polls being released from the playoff committee, which I do think come up in, I do think it's 2 weeks. They will start releasing their first poll out, and that will be their basically, again, a 25, but you're really only concerned about the top 11 and that one group of 5 school that will get the bid into the college football playoffs. The only thing difference right now, there is really no awarding of a top slot for a potential group of 5 team that's conference champion and so forth and so on. So there will be some things that will be adjusted this year as we go on with that when we see all that. But and that's going to be a thing with it. Here's what is Jim flirting with early retirement? Rudy, good question. I'll have to ask him. I'm not quite sure what the scenario was out west, other than there's a 3-hour differential in that regard. There's always something with the technical side of things, especially for him, as you saw this past weekend when we were trying to do the pregame show, and he really couldn't find a great spot to transmit from. And then the postgame show was better because he was out inside the stadium and such. So we may be adjusting some things on that end for the postgame show predominantly. So stay tuned for those potential changes. I do want to play Coach Cignetti's presser after the game there in Eugene.
Proud of the team, proud of the coaches. Feel really great for our fans and supporters. The number one largest alumni base in America with over 800,000. And it's a great road win.
It is shared a moment with a couple more outside walk off the field. I know this means a lot to everybody in the locker room, but the JMU players that followed you here, you've had this journey with them. He was one of your first commits. What's this like to have this moment?
Well, you got like guys like Kamara and Fischer and others that were at JMU, and a lot of the staff that's been together all along, Elon, and they can relate to this game because, like, you talk about great wins on the road, and I've had 3 or 4 of them at my prior places. I'm talking like of this magnitude at a relative level. I mean, you go play App State, first year in the Sun Belt, they've just beat A&M, and early in the year, and you're down 28-3 in the second quarter, and you talk about being resilient and having an indomitable will that can't be subdued or defeated. Same thing at Elon, second year. You go play JMU, number 1 in the country. They've outscored the first 3 opponents 180-6. You ask the same thing of your guys. You overcome big-time adversity in the first half at the end of the game and win with 30 seconds to go. This one, Really proud of the guys. We hung in there. You know, we couldn't stay on sides for a while, and then for a while we had a bunch of guys laying on the ground. And I was like, what's going on here? And then they'd return a play or two later. You know, I thought they were starting to get some good run chunks, and we weren't getting rhythm on offense. And I thought Frankie's field goal was really big, just like last week against Iowa. You know, that end of the half score gave us momentum going in the locker room, and our defense was tremendous in the second half. Our kicking game was really good all day. And the offense made the plays when they had to. Mendoza extended plays, made plays with his legs. And the play to Surratt obviously was huge, huge. That's a one-on-one ball, third and long, inside the 10. Those are hard to convert. And just really proud of everybody.
Rabbit and Salmon.
Yeah, big picture. Indiana, last year you said Indiana plays they never did. This is another first ever. But it's a big one. I mean, this puts you guys in a position to host a playoff game, a lot of other things. Just how significant is this for taking the program to like the top level?
Well, it depends on what we do with it from here. You know, it's a great win against the number 2 ranked team in the country on the road who had an 18-game home winning streak, right? And it puts us in position, you know, if we can continue to be successful, which means we have to show up to work on Monday as a team, humble and hungry, ready to go against Michigan State, right? You know the challenges that this team's going to have this week. So, but it's a great win.
Sammy and Jim.
Coach, the fourth quarter, you outgained them under 4 yards before the last drive to -8. What was the difference in that? You held them off almost over 13 minutes.
You know, I thought our defense really took it to them in the second half. Won the line of scrimmage, run game and pass game, put pressure on the quarterback. And, you know, the offense, you know, made the plays when they needed to. They had us off balance. They have a good defense. And the false starts obviously were an issue. But we just took it to them in the second half. And our guys played one play at a time like we asked them to. And then next play, and, you know, our guys wanted it, showed on the field they wanted it, and did the things they had to do to be successful.
We'll bring you more there from Coach Cignetti's presser, especially this afternoon, as he will be in front of the media to get reacquainted to the scenery there in Bloomington, as well as the fact that the Hoosiers are now the 3rd ranked team in the country. And with all the names swirling, as I said earlier, especially at Penn State, I'm sure there may be a question or two about that, but you can see there he answered one question. It depends on how we handle this success and move forward. And you have to be humble and hungry in this environment to have success as a team. And there's no question that he will have this Indiana football team grounded starting today with their attention solely focused on Michigan State. And the game that was Saturday is in the rearview mirror. And I think in my short time of observing Coach Cignetti and my relationship with Bryant Haynes talking about his experience with Coach Sig, there's nobody better that can handle what Indiana will be handling here with all the talk surrounding their rise to number 3 and a potential chance to play in the Big Ten championship game, as well making a second appearance into the college football playoffs. For him, that's a question that is so far in the distance that he is not going to worry about what might be. It's all about the here and now. Be where your feet are firmly planted is another one of things that he says on top of all that. You know, in that respect, I do want to play what I thought was the turning point of Indiana's game against Oregon Saturday. And it was a situation that UCLA had just missed a field goal attempt, a rather short field goal attempt, to the point that the expression of the kicker was almost like, oh my gosh, that cannot be true that I just missed that bunny of a field goal kick. How Indiana orchestrated a key drive in the latter seconds of the second half, very similar to what they did at Iowa, that it resulted in a Brendan Franke field goal. But here's what I think was the turning point again on Saturday there in Oregon. And let's get it set up there. Again, 58 yards. That would have been good probably from 68. He hit it well. And remember, that was his second attempt because Dan Lanning had called a timeout. Before that, as you can see, Sig's emotion like, okay, relax. You kicked the field goal. We're thankful for that. Get on the sideline. So I thought that was a unique thing to see from Sig in that moment as well. But again, that was, I believe, he tied a record for that field goal on Saturday of 58 yards. But he is, that was a turning point in my mind because of giving the Hoosiers the lead 13-10. It took the crowd completely out of it and gave Indiana a big time momentum change there as the end of the game was upon us. And one other highlight from Saturday was Indiana on the goal line in a set that they had not shown yet, as well as an under-center snap that
Second time today. This one
happened,
from 2 yards out.
Happened there in Eugene.
Full backfield. Hemby, touchdown. Second time today. This one from 2 yards out.
As you can see there, Roman Hemby get his second touchdown. And if you did not see his first one, he literally ran over the Thiemann kid from West Lafayette, or from Westfield High School, and transferred from Purdue to Oregon last year. But he was big in that ball game. Roman Hemby has been a great find for Indiana and all of that. But that was some of the sights and sounds of Saturday's win for the Indiana Hoosiers, 30-20 over the number 3 ranked at the time Oregon Ducks. The Hoosiers now enjoying the fact that they're at number 3 in the country, and they get the opportunity to extend their win streak to 7 at home this week against Michigan State Spartans. So stay tuned all this week for different coverage in that aspect of things about this game with Michigan State at home. To remember tonight, join me at 7:30 for the Hoosier Tailgate here on thehoosier.com. We'll have all different types of things to talk about this game from Saturday, as well as a peek ahead to Michigan State. I want to thank you and all the different stations out there that are a part of the Indiana Sports Beat Radio family, such as 1380 The Fan up in Fort Wayne, Indiana, ESPN The Ref down in Evansville, and of course JOB up in the region. And to you, the listeners, as well as those that have joined us in the chat via YouTube, thank you for joining myself today on this glorious Monday. We'll see you back here tomorrow. But for now, I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith, and you have been listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle. We will see you tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.